announced. The first agreement is a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding between EDB, Alexeev's Central Hydrofoil Design Bureau, MMS Mauritius Agathe, and Elcom Systems Private Limited for developing the transport logistics system, smart city and intellectual monitoring system in the state of Andhra Pradesh. This MOU will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Georgy Anstev, General Director, Modern Informed System, Agathe JSC. May I request to step forward, sir? On the Indian side, this will be exchanged by Shri J. Krishna Kishore, CEO, Andhra Pradesh Economic Development Board. Thank you. The second agreement is a MOU between United Shipbuilding Corporation and the Council of Economic Cooperation of Andhra Pradesh on cooperation in shipbuilding, infrastructure projects, transfer of technologies, and training foreign specialists. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Alexei Rakamanov, President of the United Shipbuilding Corporation, and on the Indian side by Shri J. Krishna Kishore, CEO, Andhra Pradesh Economic Development Board. Thank you. The third MOU is between Rusinform Export and the Ministry of Urban Development of India, Ministry of Home Affairs, National Building Construction Corporation Limited, and the Government of Haryana on cooperation in development of smart cities in India with Russian IT solutions. Number 4, MOU between Gazprom and Engineers India Limited on the joint study of gas pipeline to India and other areas of cooperation. On the Russian side, Mr. Alexei Miller, Chairman of Gazprom's Managing Committee. On the Indian side, Shri Sanjay Gupta, CMD EIL. Thank you. Excellencies, the next agreement is an announcement. It is an act of announcement in relation to the successful execution of documents between Rosneft, a consortium of international investors, and SR for the acquisition of SR Oil Refinery, its related infrastructure and distribution assets. This agreement was reached between the following companies on the Russian side: Rosneft Oil Company, Trafigura Pte Limited, UCP PE Investment Limited, VTB Bank, and on the Indian side, SR Energy Holdings Limited. The sixth announcement is with respect to cooperation agreement in the area of education and training between Rosneft Oil Company and ONGC Videsh Limited. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Il Sachin, CEO Rosneft, and on the Indian side by Shri Narendra K. Verma, MD OVL. May I request the CEO of Rosneft and the MD of OVL to please present themselves for the exchange of agreements. Thank you. The seventh announcement relates to signing of MOU for setting up of investment fund between NIIF and RDIF. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Kirill Dmitriev, CEO of Russian Direct Investment Fund, and on the Indian side by Shri Samir Khare, Joint Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs. Thank you, sir. The eighth announcement is signing of MOU for cooperation between Indian and Russian railways in increasing the speed of trains between Nagpur, Secunderabad, Hyderabad, and this will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Oleg Belozerov, President of Russian Railways, on the Indian side by Shri Naveen Kumar Shukla, Advisor, Railway Board. Thank you, sir. The ninth announcement is the signing of the shareholders' agreement for establishing a joint venture to manufacture Ka-2260 helicopter in India. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Anatoly Isakhin, Director General of Rosoboronexport, and Alexander Mikhev, CEO of Russian Helicopters, and on the Indian side by Shri T. Suvarna Raju, CMD, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Thank you, sirs. Thank you. Next is the MOU between ISRO and Roscosmos on mutual allocation of ground measurement gathering stations for GLONASS and NAVIC. On the Russian side, this will be exchanged by Director General of the State Space Corporation, Roscosmos, Igor Komarov, and on the Indian side by Dr. A.S. Kiran Kumar, Chairman, ISRO. Thank you, sirs. Next is MOU between Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of India on expansion of bilateral trade and economic cooperation. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Alexei Ulyukyayev, Minister of Economic Development, and on the Indian side by our ambassador in Moscow, Ambassador Shri Pankaj Saran. Thank you, sir. Next is an MOU between Department of Science and Technology and FASO on the Russian side to be exchanged by Mr. Mikhail Kutyukov, Head of the Federal Agency for Scientific Organizations, and on the Indian side by Ambassador Shri Pankaj Saran. Thank you. Next is the Program of Cooperation in Oil and Gas Sector for the period 2017-18. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by the Russian Minister of Energy, Mr. Alexander Novak, and on the Indian side by Shri Dharmendra Pradhan, Minister of State for Petroleum and Natural Gas. Thank you, sirs. Next is the protocol for consultations between the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia for the period 2017-18. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Igor Morgulov, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, on the Indian side by Dr. S. Jaishankar, Foreign Secretary. Thank you, sir. Next is an agreement on cooperation in international information security to be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Igor Morgulov, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, and on the Indian side by Ambassador Shri Pankaj Saran. Thank you. Next is signing of an intergovernmental agreement to construct 4 additional 1135.6 frigates through partnership between Russian and Indian shipyards. This will be exchanged on the Russian side by Mr. Alexander Fomin, Director of the Federal Service for Military Technical Cooperation, and by Ambassador Pankaj Saran on the Indian side. Thank you. Next is the signing of an IGA for the procurement of S-400 air defense system to be exchanged by Mr. Alexander Foreman, Director of the Federal Service of Military Technical Cooperation, and Ambassador Pankaj Saran. Thank you. There are two more announcements. The first is the roadmap of events to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Russia in 2017. And the last announcement is the joint partnership for global peace and stability. This will be released to the media. Excellencies, this concludes the exchange of agreement and announcement ceremony. We will now proceed to the next element of the program, which will take us to the Kudankulam nuclear power plant in Tamil Nadu. We will begin the proceedings by showing you a short film on the Kudankulam nuclear power plant, which stands testimony to the close cooperation between India and Russia.
India and the Russian Federation are strategic partners. The cooperation between these two nations has been long and relentless. The Kudankulam nuclear power project in Tamil Nadu state of India is a testimony to the Indo-Russian cooperation and friendship. With the technical assistance from the Russian Federation, India built a pair of 1,000 megawatt nuclear power reactors at the Kudankulam site. The Unit 1 of Kudankulam nuclear power project, which is India's first 1,000 megawatt electricity unit, was dedicated to the Indo-Russian cooperation and friendship recently by Shri Narendra Modi, Honorable Prime Minister of India, and His Excellency Vladimir Putin, Honorable President of Russian Federation. Unit 2 became operational on 7 July 2016. The expansion of Kudankulam site is underway with 2 more units, 3 and 4 of 1,000 megawatt units at the same site. In addition, 2 more similar units are under consideration at the same site. The Kudankulam site is rising as a mega power hub in the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now link with the Kudankulam nuclear power plant, from where we are happy to report that the Unit 2 of the plant has begun supplying electricity to the grid. And further, in the presence of the Honorable President of the Russian Federation and the Prime Minister of India, we will witness the laying of the foundation concrete for Unit 3 and 4 of the power plant by CMD NPCIL and the President Atomstroy Export. Over to Kudankulam. Thank you, Kudankulam. I now invite the Honorable President of the Russian Federation and the Prime Minister of India to jointly unveil an e-plaque dedicating Unit 2 of the Kudankulam nuclear power plant to the friendship between our two great countries, and to launch the project for Unit 3 and 4 of the nuclear power plant by pressing the button. Excellencies, this brings us to the close of this ceremony. I now request the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs to now conduct the proceedings.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will now have press statements by the two leaders. May I first invite the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, to deliver his press remarks.
Your Excellency, President Vladimir Putin, distinguished members of the Russian and Indian delegations, members of the media, it gives me great pleasure to welcome President Putin, an old friend of India, here in Goa today. As they say in Russian, Stariya drug luche novik duvak, means an old friend is better than two new friends. Excellency, I am aware of your deep affection for India. Your personal attention has been a source of strength in our relationship. And in the complex and changing global context, your leadership has provided stability and substance to our strategic partnership. Ours is a truly privileged and unique relationship. Friends, since the last two annual summits, the journey of our partnership has been renewed, focus and drive. President Putin and I have just concluded an extensive and useful conversation on the entire spectrum of our engagement. The highly productive outcomes of our meeting clearly establish the special and privileged nature of our strategic partnership. They also lay the foundations for deeper defense and economic ties in years ahead. The agreements on manufacturing of Kamov 2-60 helicopters, constructions of frigates, and acquisition and building of other defense platforms are in synergy with India's technology and security priority. They also help us in achieve the objectives of Make in India. We have also agreed to work on an annual military industrial conference that will allow stakeholders on both sides to institute and push collaboration. These projects are new chapters in a long history of strong and diverse defense partnership that both sides can take much pride in it. Just minutes ago, with dedication of Kudankulam 2 and laying of foundation concrete of Kudankulam 3 and 4, we saw the tangible results of India-Russia cooperation in the field of civil nuclear energy. And with proposed construction of another 8 reactors, our wide-ranging cooperation in nuclear energy is set to bring rich dividends for both of us. It also fits in with our needs of energy security, access to high technology, and greater localization and manufacturing in India. Last year in Moscow, I had said that we would be enlarging our presence in Russia's hydrocarbon sector. In last 4 months alone, in a clear expression of our strong and deep engagement in the hydrocarbon sector, Indian companies have invested close to US dollars 5.5 billion in Russia's oil and gas sector. And with President Putin's support, we are ready to and willing to expand the scope of our engagement further. We are also undertaking a joint study of a gas pipeline route between our two countries, a combination of robust civil nuclear cooperation, LNG sourcing, partnership in the oil and gas sector, and engagement in renewables can construct a promising energy bridge between our two countries. Friends, with an eye on the future, we also agreed to set up a Science and Technology Commission. Through this, our societies will reap the benefits of joint development, transfer and sharing of cutting-edge technologies in different fields. As with the last summit, we also continue to expand, diversify, and deepen our economic engagement. Business and industry between our two countries is connected more deeply today. Trade and investment ties are on the upswing. And with President Putin's backing, we hope to fast-track India's association with Eurasian Economic Union Free Trade Agreement. The Green Corridor and the International North-South Transport Corridor will serve to strengthen trade facilitation, logistical links, and ensure better connectivity between our two countries. Our efforts for early setting up of the investment fund of US dollars 1 billion between National Investment and Infrastructure Fund NIIF and Russia Direct Investment Fund RDIF will help advance our infrastructure partnership. We also want our economic linkages to connect the regions and states in both countries. Friends, the success of this summit shines a spotlight on the abiding strength of India-Russia strategic partnership. It also highlights our strong convergence of views and positions on pressing international and regional issues. Russia's clear stand on the need to combat terrorism mirrors of our own. We deeply appreciate Russia's understanding and support of our actions to fight cross-border terrorism that threatens our entire region. We both affirm the need for zero tolerance in dealing with terrorists and their supporters. President Putin and I noted the similarity of our views on the situation in Afghanistan and turmoil in West Asia. We also agreed to work closely to respond to the challenges posed by the unsettled nature of the global economic and financial markets. Our close collaboration at the United Nations, BRICS, East Asia Summit, G20, Shanghai Cooperation Organization makes our partnership truly global, both in its scope and coverage. Excellency, Putin, as we approach the 17th anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic ties next year, India and Russia are celebrating and building on the achievements of our past. We are working to model a partnership that befits our common ambition and meets our shared goals for the 21st century. Our close friendship has given clear direction, fresh impulse, stronger momentum, and rich connect to our ties. In the emerging regional and global landscape, it has been a source of strength and substance, a driver of peace and a factor of stability. As one would say it in Russian, India Russia ruka, ab rukuva svetloy videshviya. India and Russia together to a bright future. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
May I now invite His Excellency Mr. Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, to deliver his press remarks.
Уважаемый господин премьер-министр,
Honorable
дамы и
Prime
господа,
Minister,
дорогие друзья,
ladies and gentlemen, dear friends,
прежде всего хочу
First and
поздравить
foremost,
наших
I would like
индийских
to
друзей с началом
congratulate our
полноценной
friends
работы
with
второго
the second reactor
энергоблока
unit of
атомной
Kudankulam
электростанции
nuclear
Kudankulam.
power station reaching its full
Конечно, с
capacity.
запуском
And of
строительства
course,
третьего
with
и
launching
четвертого
of the
блоков
construction works in the third
электростанции,
and the fourth reactor units of the
возводимые
nuclear power
по
plant.
самым современным
Being
российским
built using the
технологиям
most modern
и с
Russian
участием наших
technologies,
специалистов
with
атомная
participation of
станция
our specialists, this nuclear power
очень
plant
существенным, будет очень существенным
will be a
вкладом
very significant
в
contribution
обеспечение
to energy security
энергетической безопасности Индии
of
и повышение
India
ее
and increasing
энергообеспеченности.
of its
Поможет
energy
расширить
sufficiency.
доступ жителей и
This
промышленных
nuclear power
производств
plant would
к надежным и
also improve
бесперебойным
the access of the
поставкам
citizens and
электроэнергии. И
industry
тем
to
самым
reliable and secure
даст дополнительный импульс к росту национальной
Therefore,
индийской
it will add
экономики.
additional impetus to
Россия
growing
будет и
national
дальше
economy
оказывать
of India.
всемирное
Russia
содействие
will
нашим
continue to
индийским
further
коллегам в
comprehensively
развитии
foster
ядерной энергетики.
cooperation
Ведется
with our
работа
Indian
на
colleagues in development of nuclear energy sector.
межправоглашением по
We're
пятому
working on the
блоку
intergovernmental documents on the
АЭС
fifth and sixth
Всего же на основе
reactor units of Kudankulam.
технологий
Overall,
наработок в ближайшие 20
using
лет
Russian
может быть
technologies,
построено не менее 12
more than 20 years
Наша страна
span, there will
также
be
является
12,
надежным
no less than
поставщиком
12
углеводородов на
reactor
индийский
units
рынок.
built in India. Our country is also a reliable supplier of hydrocarbons to the Indian market. Rosneft
миллионов тонн нефти. «Газпром» начал
is going to export for 10 years of 100 million tons of oil. And Gazprom started the implementation of a long-term contract to supply 2.5 million tons of LNG per year. Over the first half of this year, Russia exported 2 million tons of coal. I'd like to highlight we're going to expand our bilateral cooperation not only in energy sector but also across the board. Russia and India are especially privileged strategic partners.
Премьер-министр говорил о
Honorable Prime Minister talked
странами, которые
about the
столкнулись в
friendship
течение многих
between our
лет.
countries
Мы намерены и дальше
over
идти
these
именно
past
поэтому.
years. We're going
Наши
to
страны
pursue this
связывают
road
давняя
further.
история
Our
и
countries are connected by
взаимопонимание.
long-standing relations
В
and
следующем году
mutual
здесь тоже уже было
understanding. Next
сказано об
year,
этом. Мы
and it
отмечаем
was already
70-летие
said, we're going to
дипломатии.
mark 70 years of
В
diplomatic
ходе переговоров
relations.
премьер-министр
During the
Индии
negotiations with Prime Minister of India, first in restricted then at delegation level talks, with participation of ministers and agencies and leadership of large companies, negotiated in detail the current situation and the future of Indian-Russian cooperations. As the outcome, we have a joint declaration and a very impressive package of documents and here media
Разумеется,
have seen
особое внимание
what was
было
signed.
уделено
Of
торгово-экономическому составу.
Special attention was given to the trade and investment sphere. We have noted with satisfaction that
потоков преобладают товары
bilateral
с высокой
trade
добавленной стоимостью.
is
Продукция машиностроения
dominated
и
by
промышленной
high added
переработки.
value products
Есть,
such
конечно,
as
проблемы,
engineering
связанные со снижением
and industrial
цен на традиционные
processing.
специфические,
Unfortunately, of course,
связанные с
there were some
курсовыми
negative
разницами.
trends due to
Сказывается волатильность цен.
volatility
Мы
of
договорились
prices
наращивать
and
общие усилия
currency
для
differences.
возврата
We have
торговли на
agreed to
траекторию
improve our
устойчивого
efforts
роста.
to bring back the
Большие
dynamic growth
перспективы
in our
видят создание
trade.
зоны
We see
свободной
great
торговли
perspective in
между Индией и
forming a
Евразийским
free trade zone
экономическим
between
союзом.
Russia and between the Eurasian Economic Council and India. Experts and businesses support such an agreement. We hope that the decision to begin the negotiations will be made by the leadership of Eurasian Council already in December in Moscow at the next meeting of the Supreme Eurasian Economic Council. We are going to improve bilateral investment ties with India. Over the past year, the accumulated mutual investments reached $12 billion, so we are really close to the 2025 target goal of investments, which is $15 billion. Intergovernmental Commission is working actively, and the last session took place in New Delhi on the 13th of September. This commission has agreed upon 20 large investment projects in infrastructure, civil construction and innovation spheres. It will be financed by the fund which is being created today, by the direct investments of Russia and the National Infrastructural Corporation of India, and my dear colleague has already mentioned that. The companies of both countries are improving their industrial cooperation. Russian enterprises are showing great interest to Indian initiative Make in India. There are negotiations going on about licensed production of civil aircraft, Sukhoi Superjet 100, as well as about joint development of regional passenger aircraft. Russian company, Russian Railroads, and United Shipbuilding Company, Roscosmos, are taking part in this work. Military and military technical cooperation is improving. Russia is not only supplying military equipment and ordnance, but also is opening joint production of the most modern military equipment. For example, Su fighter jets, tanks, and anti-ship missiles, BrahMos. We have plans to have in Indian production of multi-target helicopters K-2026 and frigates. We're going to improve humanitarian ties. Previous year there was a festival of Indian culture, and this year vice versa. The corresponding agencies are going to prepare a large-scale program of cultural exchanges 2017-2018. There are a lot of different events, expos, concerts are planned for the next year, which I have already said will become the anniversary year for Russian-Indian relations. And of course, we're very detailed in our dialogue on the international topics. Indian and Russian positions are quite close or coincide. One of the priority directions is fighting the terrorism. Thank you very much.
I thank the two leaders for their statements. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the joint press briefing. Thank you all.